Well, good morning. Happy Tuesday. My name is Matthew Atkins. I'm the Senior Financial Advisor with Clearbrook Investment Management and also a National Social Security Advisor certificate holder. I want to talk to you this morning, as I mentioned last week, a little bit about the CARES Act that has been instituted, this massive economic relief package that our government has passed. But before I do that, I just want to draw your attention to some of the things that are going on in the markets right now. So let me share my screen with you, and then we'll get started, all right? I'll move up in the corner there. You like my little Monopoly game man here? I like to call him Mr. Market, and Mr. Market's an interesting fellow. I'm going to talk a little bit about him in just a second. But let's refresh our minds as to what the CARES Act is all about. It's the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. And as you might remember, there's a lot of provisions to it. The Paycheck Protection provision. There are funds being released for Small Business Administration, through the Small Business Administration, for loans to businesses. They can keep employees paid. They can get loans for their business expenses. There's a payroll tax kind of removal for the rest of this year. It's actually not going completely away. You have to pay it back in 2021, 22. There's a lot of different things that are going on, and you might be asking yourself, is that what's driving this kind of current uptick in the market? So let's just take a look at what's going on in the market. This is as of today over here on the far right side earlier this morning here. And again, we see this bottoming out back on the 23rd of March, and then we see this kind of movement up. And you might be asking yourself, what's driving that? What's pushing the market up? Well, let me introduce to you Mr. Market. Mr. Market was brought to our clients' attention at our quarterly newsletter by our owner and founder, Ben Selleck. And Ben shared a story that was first told in a parable form by Benjamin Graham back in 1949. Now, you might not know that name, but Benjamin Graham is the mentor of Warren Buffett. And so Warren Buffett summarized this parable in his economic newsletter to his clients in 1987, which, of course, remember, was the time of the great flash crash. And so let me just read a little bit of this to you, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of, is this what's impacting? Should we care about this? And what should we care about? All right, so imagine market quotes coming from a remarkably accommodating fellow named Mr. Market, who is your partner in a private business. Without fail, Mr. Market appears daily and names a price at which he will either buy your interest or sell you his. Even though the business that the two of you own may have economic characteristics that are stable, Mr. Market's quotations will be anything but. For sad to say, the poor fellow has incurable emotional problems. At times, he falls euphoric and can see only the favorable factors affecting the business. When in that mood, he names a very high buy-sell price because he fears that you will snap up his interest and rob him of imminent gains. At other times, he's depressed and can see nothing but trouble ahead for both the business and the world. On these occasions, he will name a very low price since he is terrified that you will unload your interest on him. Mr. Market has another endearing characteristic. He doesn't mind being ignored. If his quotes are uninteresting to you today, he will be back with a new one tomorrow. Transactions are strictly at your option. Under these conditions, the more manic depressive his behavior, the better for you. But like Cinderella at the ball, you must heed one warning or everything will turn into pumpkins and mice. Mr. Market is there to serve you, not to guide you. It is his pocketbook, not his wisdom, that you will find useful. In other words, what the market is doing, these gyrations that we see going on, they're probably not based on anybody really having any significant economic benefit from the CARES Act. They're just part of the emotional whims of Mr. Market. Okay, if you think about it, who's received any cash from this relief act yet? The Paycheck Protection hasn't come through. The SBOA loans are bottled up. We know that there's not a lot happening in terms of new businesses being developed. We know that there's still tremendous amount of unemployment growing. We know that there are businesses closing their door all across the country. So what would be driving this uptick? Well, the answer is simply the emotional gyrations of Mr. Market. And it's really important right now not to look to Mr. Market for wisdom. As a matter of fact, it might be a great time to just ignore Mr. Market and realize that there are much more important things that we should consider. Well, I'm going to stop right here. After reviewing this, it's gotten pretty long, and so I'm going to put a little break in the conversation today, and I'm going to do it in two parts. So I hope you'll tune back into part two, where we talk a little bit about things that we can CARES about, a little play on the CARES Relief Act. So I hope you'll tune back in, and we'll look forward to talking in part two, and then also seeing you next week. Have a great day.